Leaked Ryan Reynolds voice memos exposed. It is so clear Blake's case is falling apart. She's destroying her cred. Ryan Reynolds, too.
We can now all agree that the moral crimes committed here by Ryan Reynolds against Justin Baldoni have amounted to high treason.
Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are in full meltdown mode after their skeletons got dragged out of the closet for everyone to see. The leaked dirt exposes their desperation, double standards, and just how far they were willing to go to smear Justin bald. From laughable legal threats to scandals they thought were long buried, this Hollywood golden couple's carefully crafted image is shattering faster than their flimsy lawsuit. For years, Blake and Ryan were the untouchable duo, the perfect cocktail of charm, humor, and that oh-so-polished relatability. But now, the illusion is cracking wide open, and their power trip has turned into an all-out catastrophe. Their every move reeks of damage control, but the more they try to fix it, the worse it gets. What started as a behind-the-scenes tantrum over It Ends With Us has spiraled into a scandal so outrageous, it makes the Kardashians look like the royal family. Every desperate attempt to spin the narrative is backfiring in spectacular fashion. At this point, the only thing Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have successfully destroyed is their own credibility. Leaked recordings, botched legal maneuvers, and sheer, unfiltered desperation have completely wrecked their golden couple status. And honestly, watching the downfall unfold is pure entertainment. And then we've got Hollywood's ultimate puppet master, Ari Emanuel, the all-powerful CEO of WME and self-appointed guardian angel of Blake and Ryan. This guy really thought he was being slick when he popped up on Freakonomics and took a petty little swipe calling Justin bald Justin Boone, like some schoolyard bully who never outgrew his 8th grade peak. But here's where things get real shady. That episode? Yeah, it just happens to be the only one in Freakonomics history that mysteriously failed to record. No audio, no video, just a giant suspicious gap in the timeline. Right where Ari openly admitted that Baloney was fired because Ryan and Blake pushed for it. Coincidence? Not a chance. That's right. The same people playing the victim, crying about how Baldwin retaliated against them, were actually the ones pulling strings behind closed doors to blacklist him. The hypocrisy is off the charts. Now, let's take a moment to really soak in just how ridiculous this technical failure is. Freakonomics has been running for 15 years without a single major recording issue. Thousands of interviews, live and in studio, flawless. But suddenly, the one time a high-powered Hollywood exec slips up and says way too much, the entire recording just vanishes into thin air? Oh, sure, total coincidence. The only thing missing from this laughable cover-up is some intern tripping over a cable and yelling, "Oops!" like they're in a bad sitcom. But because this scandal refuses to be even remotely subtle, a journalist conveniently leaked the audio anyway. And, big shocker, Ari Emanuel did admit he fired Baldwin under direct pressure from Reynolds and Lively. And here's the kicker. The guy straight up called himself ride or die for them. Because nothing screams objective business decision like acting like a full-on Deadpool groupie while destroying someone's career. If that weren't enough, now we've got the bizarre saga of Ryan Reynolds' voice memos. Out of nowhere, these aggressive recordings popped up, making it seem like Reynolds was straight up going off on Baldwin. But plot twist, they were AI generated. That's right, someone, and by someone, I mean a team of panicked PR gremlins, thought the best way to handle this disaster was to fake a whole new scandal inside the scandal. It's like watching someone dig themselves into a hole, panic, and then start shoveling even faster. And let's be real. Who actually benefits from flooding the internet with obviously fake AI voice memos of Ryan Reynolds screaming at Baldwin? Definitely not Team Baldwin. Because the second these clips were debunked, they handed Blake and Ryan's side the perfect excuse. See? The internet is full of lies. The only people with a motive to muddy the waters with fake dirt are Reynolds and Lively themselves. They were already getting roasted by public opinion, so why not drop some blatantly false content to create confusion? Classic distraction tactic. Have it debunked, then used that as a convenient excuse to dismiss every other leak as just more internet lies. If that was the plan, it flopped spectacularly. Instead of making Baldwin look bad, it just made Ryan and Blake look even more desperate. They had nothing real to hit him with, so they resorted to AI deepfakes. It's like some Black Mirror reject episode where the so-called villain isn't a high-tech mastermind, but just a passive-aggressive guy from Vancouver who can't handle his wife being out of sight for more than 5 minutes. And the real kicker? With all their money, connections, and power, this is what Reynolds and Lively came up with? This pathetic excuse for a strategy? That alone tells you everything about just how bad things have gotten for them. Every single attempt to spin the situation has blown up in their faces. They've tried manipulating the press, they've planted fake scandals, and they even had their Hollywood puppet master wipe an entire podcast episode from existence. At this point, the cover-up is messier than the scandal itself. And yet, none of it is working. The truth keeps slipping through the cracks, and no matter how many industry connections they try to cash in on, people aren't falling for their act anymore. This isn't just some petty movie dispute anymore. This is about watching a couple who built their entire brand on being funny, relatable, effortlessly cool, completely destroy their own reputations by being vindictive, manipulative, and embarrassingly insecure. The golden couple illusion? Gone. And they have no one to blame but themselves. Blake Lively really thought she had that kind of power. She seriously walked into a courtroom, demanded 2.5 years worth of someone else's personal data, and expected the judge to just hand it over like it was some kind of VIP perk. But guess what? She's not the FBI. And the judge shut her down immediately, making it crystal clear that her request was beyond absurd. Think about how desperate you have to be to demand access to years of emails, texts, probably even DoorDash receipts, just hoping to dig up something, anything to back up your claims. Because let's be real, if she actually had real evidence, she wouldn't need to go on this ridiculous fishing expedition. It's almost like she's just hoping to trip over something incriminating after the fact. And let's be real, if Blake actually got access to those messages, what would she even find? Justin Baldoni sending heart emojis to his wife? Some dude confirming a meeting about kombucha sales? Like, what's the smoking gun here? Does she really think there's a secret text where Justin explicitly types out, "Yes, I plan to ruin Blake Lively's life. Let's proceed with the evil plan"? Because if that's what she's expecting, she's even more delusional than we thought. But that's exactly the level of desperation we're dealing with. She couldn't even get 2 weeks worth of messages, let alone 2.5 years, because the court saw right through this pathetic fishing expedition and shut it down on sight. And here's the funniest part. This isn't even how a strong case works. If she actually had real proof, she wouldn't be scrambling to build her case backwards, trying to dig up evidence after the fact. A solid case comes with receipts in hand, but since she doesn't have those, she's just throwing subpoenas around like confetti at a wedding, praying something sticks. If this lawsuit were a murder mystery, Blake Lively would be the detective randomly pointing at people screaming, "It was you!" without an actual crime or even a body. At this point, she and Ryan should stick to overpriced gin and bland hair products because legal battles? Yeah, not their thing. And of course, Hollywood had to do what Hollywood does best: launch a pathetic smear campaign. Enter TMZ, suddenly dragging up a completely irrelevant lawsuit from 2021, twisting it to make Baldoni look bad. So what actually happened back in 2021? Baldoni's name was attached to a copyright dispute over a script, and guess what? It was resolved. Zero liability. Nothing to see here. But TMZ, being the glorified gossip rag that it is, made sure to frame it like Baldoni's own lawyer sued him for some massive scandal, when in reality, the situation was about as serious as a fight over who called shotgun in a car ride. And here's where it gets even funnier. The same lawyer they tried to use against Baldoni, Brian Friedman, immediately shut it down. He publicly stated that Baldoni and his production company did nothing wrong. In fact, he even went as far as to say that working with Baldoni proved how ethical and honorable he was. Did TMZ put that in the headline? Of course not. They buried it because the goal was never to tell the truth. The goal was to make Baldoni look guilty of something, anything, so Blake and Ryan could keep up their phony victim act. And let's not pretend this smear campaign is anything new. Hollywood has always protected its powerful insiders while throwing outsiders under the bus. You really think TMZ, which basically operates as a PR machine for A-list celebrities, just randomly decided to dig up a resolved lawsuit from years ago, right when Blake Lively needed a distraction? Please. Someone from Team Lively made a call, and TMZ answered like the obedient little lapdogs they are. But wait, it gets even more embarrassing. When the fake lawsuits and media hit jobs didn't work, they actually resorted to an online petition to get Baldoni banned from SAG-AFTRA and the PGA. That's right. When everything else failed, someone, who could it be? Thought an internet petition would be the thing to finally take Baldoni down. And let's just take a second to appreciate the pure stupidity of this plan. How do you go from a high-powered Hollywood lawsuit to a change.org petition, like you're trying to get a canceled Netflix show renewed? Now, I'm not saying Ryan Reynolds was behind it, but, and this is a pretty big but, let's not ignore the fact that this is exactly the kind of unhinged, passive-aggressive stunt he's known for. Reynolds has built his entire public persona around being that guy, the one who takes petty jabs at people under the guise of humor. The one who plays the witty, snarky jerk for laughs. It's literally his brand. And we already know from the lawsuit that he's been obsessed with getting Baldoni blacklisted from Hollywood. So let's just connect the dots for a second. Ryan has a documented history of going out of his way to sabotage Baldoni. He also has a history of using weird humor and pranks in his attacks. And then, mysteriously, a petition pops up trying to ban Baldoni from Hollywood, using the name of a fictional murderer from a psychological thriller. At some point, you have to stop calling it a coincidence and just admit, this reeks of Reynolds' petty fingerprints. And no amount of half-baked "I'm sorries" will ever undo it. Hurt people. Even if it wasn't him directly, someone in his inner circle clearly took inspiration from the way he operates. This is a guy who has built his entire career on controlling narratives through humor, and if there's one thing Team Ryan and Blake cannot handle, it's losing control of the story. So when things started going south, they pulled the most pathetic last-ditch move imaginable. A fake online petition created under a stalker's name, trying to cancel Baldoni for absolutely nothing. It's honestly hilarious. They've gone from Hollywood royalty to desperately trying to frame someone with fake AI recordings, failed lawsuits, and embarrassing online petitions. It's like watching two rich kids throw a tantrum because their trust fund isn't refilling fast enough. Every single move they make just confirms how unbelievably desperate they are to come out on top. But nothing is working. And that's the best part, because no matter how many articles they plant, how many legal tricks they try, or how many weird anonymous smear campaigns they launch, people aren't buying it anymore. At this point, Ryan and Blake might as well accept their fate and go full villain mode, get matching leather outfits, throw in some dramatic monologues, maybe even start twirling a mustache, because this innocent victim act? Yeah, no one's falling for it anymore. And honestly, watching them struggle to keep up the illusion is just getting sad. Ryan Reynolds really thought he could get away with that joke. The man stood on a national talk show stage in front of millions and casually described what can only be called a blatant act of misconduct, and somehow he thought it was hilarious. He went into excruciating detail about how he removed Olivia Wilde's top, got distracted by stickers on her breasts, and how 65 crew members stood around watching like it was some bizarre frat house initiation. And instead of realizing, hey, maybe this isn't something I should be bragging about, he laughed. The audience laughed. The host laughed. Because apparently, in Ryan Reynolds' world, making wildly inappropriate jokes about sexually humiliating your co-stars is just another Wednesday. Now, here's where it gets truly, deliciously hypocritical. This exact scandal is blowing up while his wife is literally suing someone over a sexual harassment claim. Let that sink in. Blake Lively is out here waving the flag of justice. claiming she's a victim of an oppressive industry. Meanwhile, her own husband, Hollywood's sweetheart, was out here casually making on-air confessions about behavior that, in any other workplace, would get someone fired on the spot. So what's the logic here? If Ryan does it, it's just a joke. But if anyone else does something even remotely questionable, it's a full-blown lawsuit? That's rich. And the public isn't buying the damage control either. The resurfaced clip has sparked huge backlash, with people now questioning just how nice and harmless Ryan Reynolds really is. And let's be honest, if this was anyone else, this would have been career-ending. But of course, Hollywood and its selective outrage are doing what they do best, pretending like it never happened. Meanwhile, Blake Lively's entire legal case is collapsing under the weight of its own hypocrisy. And speaking of things collapsing, Blake Lively's carefully curated public image is in shambles. Why? Because former co-stars and industry insiders are finally speaking up about what she's really like behind the scenes. And, shockingly, she's not the charming, down-to-earth sweetheart she's spent years pretending to be. Anonymous crew members from the rhythm section have come forward, spilling not-so-shocking details about what it was actually like working with her. And let's just say, it wasn't pretty. According to them, she was rude, dismissive, and straight-up refused to make eye contact with people on set. Imagine being so self-absorbed that you can't even acknowledge the people who are literally paid to make you look good. That's peak entitlement right there. And it doesn't stop at just being socially unbearable. Apparently, Blake was so paranoid and self-important that she had a bodyguard with her 24/7, even on closed sets where no one else was even allowed in. Like, what exactly was she afraid of? That a grip operator was going to politely ask her what kind of coffee she wanted? Was she expecting an assassination attempt in the middle of a makeup trailer? This wasn't some high-stakes CIA operation. It was a movie set. But no, Queen Blake had to make sure she was protected at all times, from the absolute horror of interacting with regular human beings. And apparently, she was so unbearable that multiple co-stars and crew members openly admitted they couldn't stand her. One actor even said they realized they didn't like her just 10 minutes into working together. That has to be some kind of record. Imagine being so unpleasant that people are already done with you before lunch break. Lawrence described their past work together as tense and frustrating, because Ryan, surprise, surprise, was so arrogant and insecure that he couldn't handle feedback. Imagine being so insufferable that the mere suggestion that you could improve sends you into a full-on meltdown. That's the level of ego we're dealing with here. Apparently, the issue started because Ryan was determined to turn a serious role into a comedic one, even though it wasn't supposed to be funny. He was literally told, "Stop trying to be Jim Carrey. That's not what this role is." And instead of being, professional, he threw a tantrum and stormed off set. First of all, the audacity. You're a young actor working with Oscar-nominated producers, and instead of actually listening to people who know what they're doing, you decide you know best? This is the same guy who now parades around like he's some humble, lovable goofball who just cracks jokes for fun, when in reality, he's been a diva since day one. And let's not forget, this was years before he was even famous. He wasn't some Hollywood heavyweight yet, and he was already that entitled. Imagine how much worse he is now, with a billion-dollar brand, A-list status, and a wife who literally thinks she can subpoena half of Hollywood just to win a lawsuit. And trust me, Blake and Ryan's PR nightmare? It's just getting started. So if you think this mess is over, think again. Like, share, and comment, because I'll be right here, breaking down every shady move they try to pull next. You won't want to miss what's coming.